Hello, thanks for joining me today. My name is Navid. Today we're going to talk about the heavy hand technique, and I'm going to play some oud for you today, answer any questions you might have about oud playing, anything you like. Let me know where you're from and how long you've been playing oud for, if you've been playing for a long time, if you're completely new, anything you like. Love to hear from you. Right. All right. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you get them down in the chat, and I will get to them when I get a chance. All right, so today this is a little bit of a beginner oud lesson for you, and what I want to show you today is how to get a very nice, robust sound out of your oud. It's very important to pay attention for beginners. The proper right hand technique. Let's go over the risha holding. Make sure you get a nice pinch between the index finger and the thumb. Have a nice curve to the thumb so you get all the flesh of the thumb supporting the top of the risha, and you get make sure that your index finger is below, pinching with the thumb, so that you support it from the bottom as well. Then the rest of the fingers just curl around, can be loose, but I like to be in the palm here like this. change something with my settings here. Alright, that should be a bit better, the sound. So Risha, like this. And we come around giving the oud a headlock. You want to have your right leg up. However you want to get your right leg up, that's how you do it. The oud, hand comes around the oud like this, like you're giving somebody a headlock. And you don't have to hold the oud like this. It'll be hard to get your arm around if you hold it completely flat, like this, parallel to your chest. Usually you're going to hold it at an angle, so you get some room to bring your arm around. Anyone can hold the oud no matter your size. I've seen really small women hold very large ouds. Sometimes smaller ouds are more uncomfortable, depending on certain factors. It's just a matter of getting used to this foreign object. So then we come around here. You've got your right hand hanging out like this above the wood. This is important because we never allow our wrist to touch the soundboard or the bridge or the strings. It just hangs out here like this. Then imagine now somebody has tied some string to your thumb and is just pulling your thumb up by the string, and then they let go of the string. Try this. So it's coming up, wind up, and then letting go. Coming right into the face of the oud. And what's going to happen with the basic stroke is that the Risha tip is going to land on a string below. Or in the case of the string, the first string, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, it just kind of hangs there. So we kind of use the weight of the hand. Wind up, let go. Now the upstroke is just coming up, the wind up. You catch the string on the way up. So the beginning practice to get your right hand strong is to practice this wind up, letting go, and just hit whatever strings fall. Get used to the space here. Let your hand get used to this. Later on, as you get better, you're going to be doing more coordinated, more specific, more focused movements with the right hand. And so your angle will be a little bit different. Maybe you'll be doing less of a wind-up, but you'll always be doing a wind-up. So maybe you'll be starting up here in order to stroke the string, not so high. And as you go through that, you'll notice that you can slightly adjust how the angle of attack is to do different things. So to get a more subtle movement, you can hit the string in such a way that the Risha tip moves away from the soundboard just a little bit, so that you can do an upstroke on another string adjacent to the string you started on. So for example, down on the D string, up on the A string, down on the D string, up on the A string. This is a more advanced, subtle movement of the right hand. And if you can start practicing that from the very beginning, it'll be very efficient for your playing in the future. So one exercise you can do is just doing downstrokes on all the open strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So forth and so on, all the way down. The other exercise you can do is down, up, down, Another exercise you can do is doing alternating strokes, so down, up on two adjacent strings. So maybe you want to start C and G, or Do and Sol, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And eventually over time you want to build speed with this. So you can get it about that speed. It really helps later on when you play more advanced phrases, that you can play an upstroke when crossing the strings. Also, it's effective and really useful for the oud to be able to play very quick downstrokes as well. The technique that I first learned when I was studying oud was to cross the strings using downstrokes. So anytime you would play a note, say C, B, or Do, C, like this, you'd play downstroke. But later on I learned alternate picking, how to play upstrokes when crossing the strings, which is a more subtle, more advanced movement. It takes some time to develop that clarity of sound and the right risha angle there. So that is the heavy-handed technique. Now I recommend that you always have a little wind up when you're about to play. And that you practice letting the weight of the hand come down on the strings. The way that you can control dynamics is by the force of your hand and also the way that you hold the risha. By tightening your grip, you'll get a stronger stroke out of it than when you loosen it. It's very subtle, but that's one thing that you can do. Also tightening the grip with your index finger and thumb, that's another way. The tighter you hold the risha, the stronger the attack is going to be. The force will be more. There's more energy being conducted from your hand to the risha that way. So that is the heavy-handed technique. Let me see if there's any notes that I missed here. Let's see here. A good note that I have here. This is very important for the heavy-handed technique. The oud is a bit different from other plucked instruments, especially guitar, and even when you use a pick on the guitar, the picking method and the way that you get sound out of it, that you create sound, is different. For oud, it's more percussive. Imagine this is like a mallet or a stick, and you're holding it in your hand and you're hitting a percussive instrument with it. You're hitting the strings. If you turn the oud on the angle and you do the basic stroke pattern, I'm hitting. I'm not plucking. I'm not getting right to the string and plucking like this, or I'm not picking with my finger. It creates sound a little bit differently. So that's part of where the unique sound of the oud comes from. So if you've fallen in love with the oud and you really enjoy the sound that oud creates, then what you want to do is develop this proper way of hitting the strings rather than plucking the strings. For subtle, more advanced things, it does get into the realm of plucking and being very close to the strings. But for the most part, this is a subtle hit. So when you're practicing and developing these first movements, you want to be very aggressive and be forceful a little bit. Exaggerate your movements so that your hand develops the right movement, this wide range, so that you can do the high string, the low string, and that you can get this range. All the movement is happening in the forearm and wrist. There's none of this happening. There's none of this happening. It's all here, as though you're waving a fan at your face when you're really warm. All like that. Just rotating this wrist. Another thing you can do is whether you're holding a risha or not, you can practice on your leg when you're not holding an oud. So you can just go like this. This is really useful for times when you don't have the oud, or you're at the office, or you're just sitting and watching a movie or watching TV. You can be practicing the right hand movement. All right, let's cover the left hand just a little bit. And I want to tell you about the foundation program, the Oud foundation program, that we've got a special enrollment this week happening. And enrollment will be closing at the end of the week on Friday at midnight. So stand by, I'll mention that and tell you what the deal and the promo is this time around. So the left hand comes and handshakes, gives the oud a handshake here. And you've got this kind of action happening. And your hand can, depending on where you're going with the hand, with the fingers, whether you're going to the bass strings or the high strings, your hand is going to be at a different distance. You see how it's moving more out the fingers to reach here and back in order to reach the notes here. And so you always want there to be some contact here. On oud, we don't play like this, where we have a large gap underneath the fingerboard. Always play to the side like this. That's how it is. And let me tell you, from my struggles with the left hand, it took me about maybe a good year to two before I felt like my left hand was starting to feel comfortable. I could never seem to get my hand to look like my teacher's hand or play quite exactly like him, because everyone's hand is different and you got to find what works for you. The angle, my fingers are usually at an angle. For example, when I'm holding the strings, the notes like this, you can see my finger is at quite an angle here with the tips of my fingers. And when you use the pinky, sometimes these fingers are gonna come up. That's okay. It's great if they can stay as close as possible to the string, but sometimes when you hit the pinky, you need to lift up a little bit, but you want to keep your fingers very close to the strings, as close as possible when they're on there. So we have two main positions for the left hand. One is first position, where you have one semitone per finger, all the way up here. Then the second position is where you're one whole step up from the open string note. So let's say if this is C, then your next note would be D. So then you have one finger per semitone. Then first position, second position. And with these two positions, you can play 95% of oud music or traditional music. When you get to the higher of the other regions of the fingerboard, you're usually on the first three strings, playing different positions up here. But for the moment, you can do most of the oud action on the first position and second position. And part of the trick will be knowing when to change. Usually when you're playing an open string, we like the open strings because the open strings are really resonant and really sound strong and create that open resonant feeling of the oud that we like. For when you come down and play the closed positions here, the tone is different. So I always try to aim for the strongest tone that I can get out of the instrument, because the oud is still a very limited instrument, and you want to accentuate its strengths when you play. So that's why I tend to use the open strings whenever I can, whenever it's technically possible. So yeah, so that's basics of the left hand. There's always going to be a little pocket here between the back of the fingerboard and your palm. So you're not going to be completely out like this. You're going to be somewhere like this where you can stick your finger in the back there. And your thumb can be hanging out on top here. It can be a little bit behind, but you don't want it to come too behind like this, like you're holding a guitar or playing a chord. You don't want to be like that. That wouldn't work so well for oud playing. We want to be more like a violin playing style. So that is the basics of the left hand and the right hand, and that was the heavy-handed technique I showed you there. So if you have any questions about playing the oud, any beginner struggles that you're having, or any struggles that you're having playing the oud, please let me know in the chat. And I want to let you know about learning opportunity. We've got the foundation program right now this week. The enrollment is happening. It's opening up tomorrow, and let me get you some information on that. I'll put the link to the program in the chat. And we've got a bonus for the first 5 enrollees. First 5 enrollees will get 2 bonuses. You'll get invited to an exclusive Q&A on Zoom, and you'll also get a 30-minute oud lesson with me on Zoom. Here's the link for it. So check that out. All right. So there's the foundation program. You can get all the details there. So this weekend, if you enroll, if you're one of the first 5 enrollees, then you get a free 30-minute oud lesson with me, where you can discuss anything you want, any topics related to the oud, any challenges you're having with the material. So if you go through the material and you find a roadblock or a challenge, then you can book one of these sessions with me, and I can help you, give you some specific tips and advice that you can apply right away, or ask any questions you have about playing the oud. And with the exclusive Q&A, it'll be similar kind of thing, but you'll also be there with other oud players that have other questions that maybe you haven't thought of, or you could learn from their what level they're at, in their oud playing. Or whatnot. So that exclusive Q&A session will also be available to you. That's if you're one of the first 5 enrollees. And yeah, so basically the foundation program is available right now. So if you do go and check out the sales page, you'll see that it's available there, and you can enroll. The foundation program is separated into 4 levels: 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically they build on each other. So if you do want to save a little bit of money, I recommend purchasing foundation 1 to 4. That way you'll save a little bit of money and you'll get all the levels. The amount of content that's in the whole 4 levels is about over a year's worth of lessons, and it'll take you from a very bare beginner all the way to like a beginner intermediate kind of oud level. And so yeah, I highly recommend you do the first 4 levels. Also, with all my programs that you can enroll in, I have monthly office hours. So monthly office hours are where you can jump on Zoom with me and ask any questions you're having. You can tackle any questions or any challenges that are coming up in your oud playing, because ultimately, over time, people have things that don't get addressed all the time, and people have specific issues that might come up that you need to get advice from, and you need to get feedback right away. So it's always useful to have that ability to jump on and talk to somebody in real life. I think that's the thing that separates the Oud Foundation program and my programs for learning the Oud, is that I'm doing this full time, and I'm here to help you learn. And ultimately, I'm a real life person that you can approach and that you can get advice from with learning the Oud, because I want your success in learning the Oud. I want you to get the most out of your love affair with this instrument. And so that's why I have these monthly office hours for any of the programs that anyone who's enrolled in any of the programs. We do one for American time zones and one for Europe and Asia time zones. So every other month will be American time zones. Every other month will be European and Asian time zones. Yeah, so right now that is a good perk to have with when you enroll. And let's see here. So yeah, if you have any questions, I'm gonna start answering questions that you might have. And thanks so much for joining me today. I'd love to chat more. So if you do have questions, any question, don't worry if you think it sounds stupid. Just ask your question and I'll try to get to it. Yeah. So one question we have here from Andrew. Hey Andrew, thanks for joining today. Yeah. So I got your email about the experimenting with the different tuning. And different frequency for the notes. I don't really think that the A432 hertz has anything particularly special to it. But from a oud playing standpoint and from general high frequency, low frequency, I think that lower frequencies do have a more down to earth effect. And do feel warmer. So I do think that especially tuning the oud lower is gonna make the oud sound a little bit better, a little bit warmer. This oud is tuned lower. I don't know. Let's see how low it is tuned. Right now A is about 105 hertz, so close to 432. In the past, Middle Eastern instruments were tuned lower than they are today, and don't really know much about why we ended up deciding on these notes for the strings, but definitely they were tuned lower in the past, and that was usually because of using gut strings. And tension on gut strings, you can't go super high. You don't have such high tension on the strings either. But for the oud, it just sounds great. A lot of people agree that tuning the oud lower is where it's at, and you can hear that from this instrument. This is just a cheap $500-600 Eryab oud. Nothing special about it. Cedar top, walnut. I think this is mahogany. I think the bowl. Not fancy pegs. These pegs they do the job, but they're not great. Sounds awesome. Sounds really nice and warm, and I think that's really where it is for the oud. And I think that lower tunings do actually sound better and do have a more down-to-earth effect, more of a grounding effect on the human mind, or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know if that particular frequency has anything special to do with it. But yeah, lower definitely sounds better for the oud. It does have a calming effect. I'll just show you higher tuning oud now, and you can compare. When it comes to tuning, I don't really enjoy the higher Turkish tuning. It just doesn't sound that great to me. So I always, tune my ouds, whether it's I'm trying to play Turkish style music. I always try to do it at a lower tuning, Arabic standard or even lower. This is basically A440. For ouds, you do definitely get a nice growl with the lower tuning. Hey, you're welcome, Ward. Good to see you here. Keep practicing. Yeah, it's sounding great. So if you have any other questions, I'm here for the next few minutes. Happy to answer anything you got. And do check out the foundation program. See if it's something you're interested in. Again, enrollment is going to be closing for the foundation program completely on Friday, at the end of the day on Friday. And then I'll open it later on, going lower on Yieldrum oud. That's a good question. Yeah, I think it works. Yeah, it does. It's not too bad as long as the strings are not too loose. I've done it before. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem. But tuning is one thing. Just keep it in the tuning that sounds good, and depends on what you're doing too. If you're trying to always play with recordings and stuff, you may want to keep your oud tuned to a certain tuning so that you can match with the recordings. But nowadays, there's all this software that you can have that changes the pitch. One thing that I use, this is a good tip for playing along with YouTube or Spotify through your internet. If you're using a web browser, I use this Google Chrome extension. It's called Transpose Pitch, I think, or what is this called? Let me see here. It's called Transpose, and it's for Google Chrome. Very useful. I use it all the time for when I'm practicing or trying to play something, learn something on a different tuning. So like, let's say I want to keep my ouds tuned to Arabic tuning, but I'm trying to learn something Turkish, for example, and everything's tuned higher or something like that. I just use Transpose to bring the pitch down to my tuning. Yeah, so that's very useful. Yeah, any other questions? Otherwise, I will let you go. And if you have any questions that come up later on, just email me here to my email address. What strings do I recommend for Yieldrum? That's a good question too. I like the Kirchner strings on the Yieldrum oud. I also like right now I have the Dario. I've used the Arabic version, the Dario. Right now this is a mix. I've got the Dario Turkish strings on the bass wounds, and then I've got Kirchner, I think these are Kirchner PVF, the fluorocarbon strings. These are a little bit better for the tension, I find, because the Yieldrum strings are very close together. So they tend to, especially on the C string, mine tend to kind of, when I hit really hard, they start to make some sound, hit each other. So I like a nice strong tension for the top strings. That's important for me. but I like the nice mellow, little bit lower tension for. I don't know the difference really between the German version or the Turkish version for the strings, so you use whatever you can find. Another question here: when you change the strings, do you first put the strings pegs closest to the nut? The way that I do it, I've done it different ways from time to time, but yeah, it's easier if you do these strings first, the ones that are tied to the ones closer to the nut, I think, because otherwise if you get the other strings in the way, then it's hard to feed the string through the peg hole, and then you can maybe work your way out from the strings this way inward to the strings in the middle. Do them last. Yeah, Miras Oud. Sure. Let's hear the Miras Oud. All right, so that's it. After this little taksim, I'll let you go, and I hope you have a great evening. Here's the Miras Oud for you. Thanks so much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed. And yeah, thanks. Have a great evening or day wherever you are. And see you next time.